Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nothing Off Limits podcast with Genna and Jeremy. I'm Jeremy Taché.
I'm Jenna Mark.
And we're going to start talking about sports and other things now.
But mostly just
sports today. And in our local area, you know we are from Miami, as we told you on the last podcast. If you're a first-time listener, hey, we're from Miami. We're going to talk about the Miami Heat because they're the best team in the NBA.
They are the hottest team in our city right now.
The hottest because of the Heat. So the Miami Heat, they've won 8 out of their last 9. They're a half game back of Cleveland for third place. Mind you, that's a Cleveland Cavaliers team with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. The Miami Heat do not have LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, and yet just a half game behind Cleveland. Playing incredible basketball. Hassan Whiteside is kind of rounding into form here. He missed a lot at the beginning of the season. You know, you look at it in the Heat, I believe if they've won 8 and 9, which means I think they're 8 over 500. Might be 7 over 500. I'm not exactly sure what their record is. But alone in 4th place in the Eastern Conference, and that's with Tyler Johnson missing multiple games, Hassan Whiteside missing a lot of the year, James Johnson missing significant time, Justice Winslow has been out for a significant amount of time, Goran Dragic has missed games here and there, Dion Waiters is out for the year, Noah Carr-White, no Rodney McGruder.
We're taking the place of San Antonio right now.
It's insane. No, that's exactly what it is.
It's like when the Spurs were without Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, like half the team was benched and like missing body parts, and like we've got guys missing teeth, and they're all banged up.
Tyler Johnson, who will never replace his teeth, and I love it so much.
I mean, Tyler Johnson wanted to play with a broken jaw, so let's be realistic. A missing tooth is not going to stop him, but I just think it's fascinating that like you said, they don't have LeBron James, they don't have Dwayne Wade, and yet here they are really making noise and making a push. And I mean, I don't like to talk about 3rd round, 4th round of the playoffs before the All-Star game. I just think it's pointless because basketball so easily changes on a minute-to-minute basis. But I do think it's quite fascinating at the fact that they've 8 out of 9. I mean, their loss to Chicago wasn't like they got swept away. It wasn't like they checked out. I mean, Tyler Johnson went down. There was, they did come back from being down. So I just think that I hope that this is something that they'll carry through and the All-Star break won't kind of mess up their momentum.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about the Spurs, and that's kind of the type of basketball that they're playing as well, where they're just moving the ball so significantly. And on any given night, a different guy is going to be their leading scorer. If you scroll through their schedule,
you mean Kobe's not ball handling?
Yeah, no, it's not that type of thing. It's not the Dion Waiters hero ball that we saw at the beginning of the season. And that's no offense to Dion Waiters. It was just, this is not a roster with a star. And so a guy like that who now
Hassan Whiteside and Justice Winslow would beg to differ with you.
Justice Winslow is not yet. Right, so Josh Richardson, I think, is actually going to emerge as a superstar. He's playing great basketball, but the way that this team is playing, where on any given night a different guy is going to be the leading scorer. Wayne Ellington is playing incredible basketball, shooting and even dishing the ball. Bam Adebayo stepped up big time. Kelly Olynyk is putting up significant numbers. James Johnson hasn't even really been scoring at all, and yet you look at it. He's dishing it out every other game. He's leading the team in assists. He's leading the team in rebounds.
But
these guys are just playing their role.
That's what it takes. I mean, when you don't have a LeBron or you don't have a Kobe or a Carmelo, or Steph Curry, that's what it takes to really be a good team. Because you've got to be able to have someone who can facilitate and find the guy who's in good scoring position or even open, if that's the case. And I think that's what Johnson does so well is he's just constantly always looking around him, and he doesn't care if he has no points.
Right.
For him, it's like at the end of the day, if you're going to score and you're in easy position to score, and I know I'm not going to make this shot, I'm going to pass the ball without thinking twice.
Right, and
I think he's constantly doing it and beating the defense and thinking ahead.
I think a lot of us were concerned at the beginning of the year that once all these guys got their contracts, because the team struggled to start, and I think a lot of people were concerned, now all these guys are on long-term contracts, they have nothing to play for. They don't have that extra motivation to play to try to get extra money. And so now what we're really coming to see is actually the opposite of that. They're all just comfortable. Nobody's trying to outperform their contract to try to get that next contract. It's more just you have a bunch of guys that are playing together, seem to love each other, and are playing as a team, which is going to be interesting because if you look at the NBA and its constructs over really the last decade, there haven't been teams to win championships without stars. Even the Spurs, when they were winning, still had Hall of Famers on that team. This is not one of those teams. Like, it's just not.
No, but in the East, in the East, I mean, you look at the Spurs where the competition in the West is just like, it's like comparing high school basketball to professional basketball. Whereas in the East is, I feel like the East Coast, there's just so much that could happen and change on any given day. And, you know, if one team shows up and another team is just not all there, it doesn't really matter. Whereas you look at the West with, you know, the Warriors and the Thunder and the Spurs, they're loaded. Every team.
Yeah, the Rockets.
Crazy. They're the Clippers. I mean, they're loaded and they all have stars. Whereas on the East, a lot of them don't.
Yeah, which is why a team like this maybe could make some noise come playoff time. But what's interesting when we talk about stars is there have been all sorts of rumors out there since the beginning of the season, since before the season started, since Hassan Whiteside went down, Justice Winslow went down, all these different things have happened, of will Pat Riley, the architect of this Miami Heat team that has created now this atmosphere that Eric Spoelstra has just run with in terms of a team atmosphere. And
I don't mean to cut you off, but we do have to point out that the way this team is playing, you have to credit Eric Spoelstra.
1,000%.
That guy, I mean, and I said it last week too, but I mean, when the big three were here, everyone said, anybody could coach these, you know, a 2-year-old could coach this team and they'd still win. This team, you've got to know what you're doing. And you really have to know how to coach.
And he's instilled those defensive principles with this team that are remarkable.
And he's motivating them. You know, when Fizz was here, he was the motivator and all the guys, you know. And then Fizz left and everyone was like, well, now what? And I think before we get into the trading block, I think Spoelstra deserves 150% of the credit. Because without him doing what he's done, this team would be 0-in however many games they've played, 20, whatever. 30, whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, continue on.
I wholeheartedly agree. But when you look at it, now you've got this team that's playing really great ball. The trade deadline comes up, I believe, in a couple of weeks. I think February 8th is the trade deadline. And it'll be interesting to see because Riley is not one for complacency. Historically, he's not one to say, I'm comfortable being the 4th best team in the Eastern Conference.
That would never.
Of course. Right. So that doesn't fly. Now, you know, this team has, over their last 82, won 50-something games. I mean, they've been great. But that's not a single season. And does he think this team can compete for a championship? And so if he doesn't believe that, the trade combination that constantly is floated out there is, do you package Hassan Whiteside and Justice Winslow and whatever you got in terms of draft picks and try to go get yourself a superstar? We don't know who will be out there. The name that's constant, there are a couple names that have been floated out there. It's Paul George, who's on the last year of a deal. It's an expiring contract. So if you you try to convince him to stay, and if you end up losing him, you clear space.
Next year.
And the other name is Anthony Davis, who I cannot imagine why the Pelicans would take a combination of Hassan Whiteside and Justice Winslow for Anthony Davis, but we've seen crazier things happen in the NBA.
I think, here's what I think. I think first and foremost, if history hasn't taught us anything, there's definitely 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th deals potentially happening that we don't know about that are probably bigger names that Riley is probably looking into. And I think that those other deals that we're not really getting much information about are the ones he's looking at.
Yeah.
So if you're asking me about Anthony Davis or Paul George, I mean, I think obviously Paul George is Paul George, but I have a difficult time with this because, yes.
Do you think either of those guys put the Heat over the top?
Here's the question. I don't know, but here's the thing. I think in the East, having a big guy is such an advantage. Having Hassan Whiteside is such such a feather in our hat. You know, it's like there's not many teams that have someone that can really shut him out or shut him down on a nightly basis. The problem is Hassan does that to himself.
Right. He's inconsistent.
Hassan has not, and I listen, injuries have probably played a part in that.
Especially this season.
Yeah, for sure this season, where he can't get into that rhythm yet. But I think that Hassan is his own worst enemy in the sense where he can show up and he can deliver for you, and he can be a fantastic center night in and night out, but he just doesn't do it.
That's fair.
And I think that you're talking about Pat Riley, who demands that and expects that from his players, no matter who you are. And, you know, does he sit there comparing him to Shaq? No.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Pat Riley wants that. He wants to know that everything has been laid out there.
Yeah.
And all options have been exhausted. And I think that if you have a guy like Hassan who can't really give you that because he's not proving that he's going to do that, I understand why you would get rid of him, because you could bring in a star. You could probably pay him a lot less money. I mean, do I think Hassan Whiteside is playing $95 million caliber basketball?
Yeah.
No.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting with Whiteside because he's finally playing like the player we expect him to over the last week or so, maybe even a little longer than that. And look, I wouldn't make that trade.
I wouldn't do it for Anthony Davis.
I would do it for Anthony Davis before I would do it for Paul George, because Anthony Davis continues to do the things that Whiteside does well, which is shot blocking and rebounding, but is an incredibly versatile scorer and can pass out of the post, which is what we haven't had with Hassan Whiteside, because Hassan Whiteside is a black hole. As soon as he touches the ball, it's going up, and that's not a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of the time it works out to the benefit of the team. But there come points in the game where there might be a little bit of a lull, and all of a sudden you pass it to Whiteside, and at 18 seconds left in the shot clock, you're losing possessions. And that's not what the Heat have been trying to do. They move the ball around.
But Johnson counters that and does it so well.
And Bam Adebayo and Kelly Olynyk do a really good job out of the post of moving the ball, which is what they want from Whiteside, which is why Whiteside had lost some minutes toward the end of the game recently, which is what someone like Anthony Davis would be able to do productively. Yeah. And I'm a huge Justice Winslow fan. I think all he is...
Well, you have to throw him in the deal. Whatever you're going to do, you've got to get rid of him. If you're going to do this trade, you can't make...
No, you can't do anything without him.
You can't do it without
Of course not. My problem with getting rid of Justice Winslow is that he's a 21-year-old, basically oversized point guard who can guard any position on the floor. Yeah. He's an incredibly versatile player. He's a 21-year-old learning to be James Johnson, but maybe better. I still think there's a little bit of Draymond Green in him. He's not quite that big, but that's the type of role. That's the type of role that he could play on a team where he defends all sorts of different positions, can play the four. He played let's not forget, when they played Chicago, it was Chicago, right? Or maybe, no, it was when they played Toronto. In that Game 7, when we still had Wade, Justice Winslow started at the center position in a Game 7. Like, that guy can do a lot of different things for you, and he was 19 years old at the time.
And it's funny that you say that, because that's kind of like what LeBron does. LeBron can play any position on the floor.
He's not that guy, and he can't shoot yet.
Well, he's not as big as LeBron.
Right.
I mean, LeBron is a bigger guy, but I think that losing, it's like I'm torn with this. Like, I would totally.
Look, I'm comfortable giving what I'm saying at the end of it. What I'm saying at the end of the day, with both of those guys, there's a certain level of ceiling to both of them. What Winslow provides you right now, and it all depends on whether or not you think this team can go over the top at the moment. Anthony Davis is a superstar, and he's a once-in-a-generation type of superstar because he's a post player that can shoot the basketball and can pass, and you don't find that a lot. And so bringing him in, sure. Would I make that trade for Paul George? I'm not so sure about it, because the restrictions and what a lot of people might not think about when they think about whether or not the Heat could make a move is that next year Tyler Johnson's contract jumps up significantly, and so if you lose Whiteside and Winslow, mind you, Winslow doesn't make that much money. You lose Whiteside and Winslow for someone like Paul George, the contract expires and he leaves. You don't have the cap space of a superstar. It's not like all of a sudden you have $25 million to work with. You still only have about $10 million because Johnson's contract jumps up. That was a lot of Miami Heat talk. I think we should move on. I think we should just move on. We're going to come back to it next week. We're going to be in the same position and talking about the same situation.
Can I just finish and cap off this point?
Please.
If I was Pat Riley, I the Justice Winslow thing is what would hold me back because
Okay.
I would be excited.
We all believe in Justice Winslow.
Exactly. And I think he does. I think he's, first of all, the fans love him.
Uh-huh.
So I think that, losing him, you lose a lot of that energy that I don't know that an Anthony Davis or even a Paul George could kind of compensate for. As good as they both are,
Right.
Justice is so likable.
Okay.
And I feel like watching him grow and develop, he does continuously get better.
Right.
So I don't think that
he is shooting close to 40% from three this year. Not that he's taken a lot of threes, but he's better than he was.
Yeah, and I think that's only going to continue to happen. So if I'm Pat Riley and as a fan, I don't want to see him go somewhere else and thrive.
Right,
I want him to continue thriving here. That's the only thing that would hold me back.
And then if that's really the case, then ride it out with these guys.
Exactly.
I mean, you've built something special, and they're talking about the Heat culture, and it's real. I mean, it's real. We all make jokes about it.
It is real.
I scream culture randomly all the time at people just because when they bring up the Heat, I just yell culture, but it's real.
It is real. It's very much a thing.
Yeah, so we'll see in a few weeks what happens with all of that. Moving from basketball, which I'm incredibly comfortable with, to tennis, which I know almost nothing about.
So you're the bagel tennis guy.
Yeah, I'm the bagel.
Remember, for those of you that don't remember, bagel. We have this bagels and locks thing where we'll
get
teams.
To that later.
Bagel means the team has no shot at winning, and bagel in tennis also is the term when someone scores a 0 at the end of a set.
And I, number one, if we played tennis against each other, I would just put up bagels because I'm not good and you're good at tennis, which I've come to find out. And I also know almost nothing about the sport. So we're going to have fun with this.
I should quiz you. Let's see what you get wrong.
Please. You could even ask me what major it is. I don't even know. Is it Australia?
Yeah, good job.
It's Australia.
And you work in sports television.
I only know that because we have had to deal with the time changes.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
The Australian
I'm
Open.
very sleep deprived. Thanks, Australia.
Mm-hmm. So, Australian Open. Where would you like to start?
Gosh. Okay, first things first. I really have to get this off my chest. I tweeted it yesterday. And I'm sure once I say it, you'll know where I'm going with this. But Rafael Nadal is a proven Grand Slam champion. He's in the conversation with being one of the GOATs in the sport. Undoubtedly, he's the king of clay courts. And I understand that his match was less enticing than the young coming Australian star in Nick Kyrgios, against a very well-known French veteran in Joe-Wilfried Tsonga, who's also very entertaining to watch.
Yes.
But I have a bone to pick with the tournament for not putting Nadal on I almost said Arthur Ashe Stadium, which is in the U.S.
On center court.
On center court, which is called Rod Laver Arena. And instead, they put the Australian versus Frenchman, which neither of them have even won Grand Slam. Okay. It's just that he's the local kid up and coming against a really solid veteran who's always in the mix. He's kind of...
have an issue with the...
I kind of have an issue with the lack of respect to Rafa. That's all I'm going to say.
See, that's interesting because at the end of the day, like we've talked about, sports is entertainment, right?
It is entertainment. And listen, yes, this kid, I mean, I know you don't know where I'm going with this.
No, I don't.
But Nick Kyrgios to Australian tennis is kind of like what Andy Roddick was way back in the day.
Yeah.
He's nowhere near as good. He checks
but he's the hope.
He's the hope, and he's exciting to watch, and he's very flamboyant, and so is the French guy that he played in Joe-Wilfried Tsonga. Joe-Wilfried Tsonga, like...
I actually do know who that is.
Exactly, because he's very flamboyant.
Pat myself on the back
does his dances... does his dances on court. I mean, they're both very fun players to watch, and I get that. But when you're trying to schedule, and listen, I'm sure Rafael Nadal, it was 107 degrees in Australia yesterday during the day, so I'm sure Nadal said, listen, I'm playing at night. I don't care.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like he's Rafa, and it would be like saying to Federer, like, you're going to the second court.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
There is a semblance,
and it's Roger and Rafa. They're always in the same conversation.
Yeah, so, there is a semblance of respect that needs to be had.
But I get it. It's a local kid, and I'm sure Rafa doesn't have a problem with it. I'm sure Rafa was like, listen, as long as you let me play at night and I'm not dying on the tennis court in 107-degree weather, I'm totally fine.
I'm sure they gave him his option. But I can understand what you're saying in terms of respect. It's just more of a, if we're looking at it truly from the entertainment and who the fans want to see, because that's what's interesting is with tennis, there's a little bit of that fine line between, it's not always just about what the fans want to see. They do have a history of respecting the greats within their sport. It's a little bit different than a lot of other sports where it's constantly evolving. Similar to golf, it's, there are traditions within that, and there's a semblance of respect within that sport that doesn't exist in a lot of other sports in the same way. So it's not always just about the entertainment value. It's about the history and the respect. And so when you have someone who's been
So you're saying you get it.
So dominant. Yeah, I get what you're saying. What I'm saying is I understand where you're coming from because there's always been such a semblance of history and respect. If I'm looking at it in a bubble and saying, like, let me put the most entertaining thing out there, Rafa didn't have the most entertaining match. It wasn't. And this was the most entertaining thing for the most people. They made the quote-unquote right decision, but there is you have an issue with the lack of respect for the song.
That respect factor. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Anyways.
I get that.
Now that
rant
is
over.
Yeah,
no, that's great. No, I wholeheartedly agree. Look, I'm only watching the Australian Open going forward if there's more of Will Ferrell pretending to be Ron Burgundy. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Up.
No, I don't want to set it up. Just go find it.
Go Google. Will Ferrell is officially the champion of post-match interviews. I'm sorry, incredible. Brad Gilbert. I know that you love doing them.
No, it was amazing. He comes out in basically full Ron Burgundy character without obviously wearing the mustache and wig, which is still legendary. But Anchorman, Ron Burgundy, Will Ferrell, and he just came out and messed around with Roger Federer, and it was an incredible time. And so that's my type of tennis. My type of any sport. I've come to the point where I've come to a realization in my life that ESPN is just a different version of E-News. In that
it's just with athletes.
Right. It's just athletes.
But this was not.
No.
This was not for ESPN.
No, it wasn't. It's its own thing. Sorry.
This was purely him being there and the
course.
And I don't know if he even asked, or I'm sure he probably said, "Hey, let me do this this post-match interview," which ESPN does.
Right. What I mean more so than anything is that sports television is no different than entertainment television.
Oh, absolutely
in that sports is just entertainment. There's a competitive nature to it. We allow for our insecure masculinity to mask the fact that it's just strictly entertainment, and we love the drama. Think about it. For all week, we're going to talk about whether or not Tom Brady's hand might be hurt, and we don't know. And what people like more than anything is that we don't know. You know what I mean? This storyline is bigger because we don't know.
So are we segueing out of tennis?
We'll get there. Oh. But I'm just talking about the entertainment aspect right now for a second. But like something like that, because we don't know whether or not Tom Brady's hurt, is what everyone's like craving off. It's the drama.
I also think that there's a lot of anti-Brady, anti-Patriot, anti-Belichick, and that's fueling all this.
But it's because of the drama. Because of the storylines we've created of Spygate and Deflategate and all these, like, you see what I'm saying? It's all drama. Like, that's all. We love sports for the drama of it, and it's not contrived. And because it's real, that's why we love it so much.
Well, it's authentic drama as opposed to
reality TV.
Someone reading a script and getting paid.
Right, but it's strictly entertaining us in the same way. So, like, Will Ferrell doing stuff like that, having the most exciting players on center court. It's all the same thing.
He did it with the right guy too. I mean, if you haven't watched it, you're not going to know what I. But okay. He compares Federer to a gazelle, and Federer just runs with it and kind of fueled Will Ferrell actually, which a lot of people think Federer's he's from Switzerland, he's quiet, you can't really read him when
he stays neutral because he's from Switzerland.
He's not a very flamboyant personality. He doesn't really give you much when you're watching him play tennis. He's pretty. He stays pretty even keel. He's not John McEnroe bashing chairs and rackets on a tennis court.
That is absolutely true.
So, and if he gets a bad call, he doesn't erupt. He's pretty even keel, and yet he played along with it and showed his playful side. And I feel like those are the parts of Roger Federer that like people don't get to see a lot. I mean, I've witnessed them, but like most people don't see it, and I just thought it was so clever. And like, look, it has someone like you talking about the
Yeah,
Australian Open.
exactly.
Which we haven't even talked about tennis yet. We talked about the tournament and Will Ferrell.
Yeah, so who do you think is going to win?
I don't...
Those are not the questions that I have any answers to.
You definitely bagel and locks.
Yeah, bagel and locks. We'll go back to...
But I think that, all I'm going to say is that it's nice to see a lot of... This tournament has been like from the get-go, it's been upset central.
Mm-hmm.
Like every underdog has just come out and proven themselves and is making their mark, and it's nice to see them follow up matches and continuously. I mean, the seeds are dropping,
mm-hmm.
which is from the entertainment aspect probably not so good.
No, but that can be fun for.
It's a lot of fun, and it's nice to see so many young players, especially on the women's side, really, evolving and kind of I don't want to say like making their names,
coming into their own
in this tournament. It's the first real big tournament of the season, which means there's 9 months left of watching these people back things up, and that's always exciting to watch the new guys. But I mean, come on, Federer takes it home. You don't think so?
You think Federer takes it home?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Cool.
I mean, for the men.
Yeah,
sure. The women, I have no idea.
Sure, Federer, yeah. Federer's going to win. Who's left in the women? I'm sorry to be so ignorant on this.
Serena, come back.
Yeah,
I can't
that's
take
what I'm saying. Like, once Serena's eliminated,
she wasn't eliminated. She didn't even go. She didn't even play.
But that's my point.
But
once she's not
equation.
A part of it, it's not that I don't care, but Serena to women's tennis is Tiger to men's golf.
She's bigger than that. She's LeBron. Right. She's Tiger. She's
right.
Brady. She's Kobe. She's all of it.
Right, but that's my point. When she's not in a tournament, nobody's paying attention. So at the end, maybe I'll watch the actual final. But a lot of people don't pay attention to the tournaments that golf has struggled without Tiger in it, in the same way that women's tennis struggles, without Serena. But it'll be interesting. I know.
I think not to cut you off, but Serena's not there, and a lot of seeds dropped,
which is kind of entertaining. It's cool to see new faces.
It is cool to see new faces, but I will say this: Madison Keys is like carrying the flag for the Americans in Australia right now.
Yeah, Keys. Yeah,
and she was a finalist at the U.S. Open, and I really hope she can carry it home. I don't know if she will. There's a lot of other. I mean, Wozniacki's in it.
What's the key to her victory?
Ooh. Well, in tennis, you can't really like. It's not one thing.
Oh, sorry.
Because it's a match by match basis.
Right.
So it depends on who she's playing. If she's playing someone, Madison Keys is known for, being. She's kind of like a Sharapova, where she bashes balls.
Uh-huh.
She loves to hit winners.
So strength.
So power is really her game.
So it's consistency with the finesse then that would be.
But it depends on who she's playing. If she's playing someone on the other side of the net who does the same thing, she's the better player. Let's just say, she's going to change things up and try to get them out of their comfort zone. Whereas in someone like Caroline Wozniacki, her game plan is just consistency, and she's like a human backboard. She just fires back,
and hopes you make a mistake,
and hopes and waits, and she's patient until you make a mistake. So it could be Wozniacki Sharapova, Wozniacki Keys, and of course, because it's the Australian Open and it's been upset central, it could be people we don't.
No, we've never heard of before.
We're not even discussing.
Awesome.
No, people I've heard of before. People
that most people haven't, most normal people haven't heard of before. You're a tennis fan. That's not normal. Then to the American public, is being a big tennis fan. Let's put a poll on our Twitter. Is being we're not going to do that. Is being a tennis fan normal?
Yeah.
Sure. Liking tennis, watching the final couple of days of these, but not a lot of people would consider.
I mean, not a lot of people would be waking up at 3:30 in the morning,
to watch
like
tennis.
I'm doing, to watch live tennis. Yeah, I get that. All right, fine.
So that's the
point. I'm in the unpopulated.
You're in the minority
area, which I don't like. More people need to support tennis. It's a great sport, and it's a great social event.
That's true.
It's
tennis
nice to go.
Cool. I would love to go to a tennis match. We'll do that sometime.
Maybe, but I'll have to explain a bunch of stuff to you.
No, I understand. I know how tennis works. I've watched the game. I know. All right, let's get one thing clear. I understand how tennis works. I just don't know a lot of the athletes within the sport. I know
you
how
know
the
the
game
big
works.
ones.
I
You
know the
big
big
ones.
names. Yeah.
You know Novak Djokovic. You
Of
know
course.
who Roger Federer is.
Yeah, he has a lot of
Andy
great watch
Murray.
commercials. Uh-huh. Let's get to the NFL. We're
almost done with the NFL, huh?
Yeah, we are. We are on to Championship Sunday. Hey, for those of you that listened, we told you not to bet based off of our picks, but I believe we got 3 out of 4 right. Jenna was 2 for 2.
I was 2 for 2.
I unfortunately lost on not unfortunately, amazing game, but my prediction of the Saints was lost in the actual final second of the game. So we were real close to going 4 for 4. If you don't remember the segment, we referenced it a little bit earlier in this podcast. It's called Bagels and Locks. Bagels, the team has 0% chance to win. Locks, you're a lock to win the game. It's a very clever pun. We're pretty proud of it. But
the lock is always the Patriots, the Cavs.
Okay. Whoa. All right, so let's get to it. So
we're not voting with our hearts. We're voting with
our minds. So
yeah.
All right. So last week, I'd like to get to that. So what I would like to do first, before we get to our Bagels and Locks of this week, is talk about one game in particular last week, which was Steelers-Jags. Very entertaining game. But I had some very critical things to say of the Steelers going into that before I picked the Jags to win. And what I said was that they were the
biggest disappointment.
And now I'm right. They are the biggest disappointment because they're going to lose Le'Veon Bell. I don't know if you've seen what's going on. Apparently, he sat out the walkthrough.
He's just here so he doesn't get fined. Oh,
yeah.
That's Marshawn.
No, that's Marshawn Lynch. But Le'Veon Bell sat out the walkthrough on the Saturday before the game.
He should have said that.
Yeah.
He should have just stolen Marshawn Lynch's quote and just made it a sign and sat there. It would have been fantastic.
He's at a point where they might lose him. And so this team with a Hall of Fame quarterback, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, 2 of the best to play their positions, they've never won anything. They fired their offensive coordinator. I like Mike Tomlin as a guy. I think he's a very entertaining soundbite after games.
He doesn't do it for me.
The fact that he still has a job, this is the most disappointing.
Now
and he should
owners how to fire.
No, he should have a job in the NFL, but not with this team anymore. Because and to me, it's just you have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball. So much talent. And you put up how do you give up 45 points? I love Blake Bortles. How do you give up 45 points to the Jaguars?
Clearly upsets
Jeremy. They're the most They're the biggest disappointment. They're the biggest disappointment in the history of rosters in the NFL. Their defense isn't good. Their defense is bad.
We're gonna have the city of Pittsburgh
That's fine. Pittsburgh, come after me. I'll be the spokesman of who Pittsburgh hates.
Actually, they may love you.
The Steelers are the biggest. This Steelers team is the biggest disappointment in the history of NFL that I've watched. I'll say.
Jeremy's also like 20 years old.
All right, relax. I'm in my 20s. That's fine. Okay. They are the biggest disappointment in the history of rosters to have that type of offensive firepower and not be able to do anything with it. And now you lose to the Jags. The Jags have a great defense. We'll get to those picks in a second. I might surprise you in where I lean with all of these conversations. But the Steelers to not beat that Jaguars team, and the Jaguars are very good.
Themselves.
The Steelers
they kind of
turn the ball over. Like they cannot be at the point. And now if they lose Le'Veon Bell, like that's it. They're just such an incredible disappointment.
I don't think it's that. I think it's – I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I just think that – I think there's a disconnect there.
Mm-hmm. There has to be.
I don't think it's one person over another. I just think this team has been together for so long.
They've just lost that.
They need some sort of spark.
Uh-huh.
And – I don't know what that spark is. I'm not a psychologist, but like,
and we're not the technical football people going out and making changes with the roster.
Right, but I think that they've been together for so long. I think that's the problem.
Well, that's why I say, and I like Tomlin, and that's why I said that I think Tomlin should be a head coach. I'm just not sure with this team anymore because there comes a point where you hear the same message over and over again. It becomes repetitive.
But is it him or is it? Not him.
I don't know.
I hate blaming coaches for winning and losing because to me it's like the coach is not the guy out there throwing the interception or misreading the defense.
But there is a semblance of being able to put your guys in the right position to succeed and motivating them to play at the level that they should.
I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is...
And I don't necessarily think that either. I'm not calling for the firing of Mike Tomlin necessarily. What I'm saying is we constantly in this NFL culture are firing coaches when they shouldn't be fired. And yet in the same division, Mike Tomlin, who's had an incredible roster for years and yet won one Super Bowl at the very beginning when it wasn't even really quite his team yet. Where they have this incredible roster right now on offense, and they haven't done anything with it. And you have Marvin Lewis with the Bengals in the same division, who somehow still has a job. Like, these teams have vastly underachieved, and I like both of those guys. They seem to both be really quality human beings, and even seem to be decent coaches. But the fact that
but if they can't
they're
coach
underachieving,
these teams, what makes you think they can coach other teams?
Well, because they've had success. They have had success in the regular season, and there is something to that. Andy Reid hasn't had a tremendous amount of postseason success, but has turned teams that weren't very good into very good teams. He's overachieved with rosters, and so have both of these guys. Like, Andy Dalton's not a good quarterback, and Marvin Lewis made that team pretty good for a couple of years, but they missed their window because they didn't have a great quarterback. It's just like we're constantly firing coaches for no reason, and they're both getting the Jeff Fisher treatment of like, oh, you could just stick around forever. And I don't get it. But that's not really we need to get to the actual games now. I'm sorry for going on a rant about that.
Mike Tomlin.
And I'll just skip over Big Ben's whole little thing here that has come out on.
Yeah, forget that. We don't have time for that. No one cares about the Steelers. They're out of the playoffs.
They're out of the playoffs. So,
who's your bagel and locks?
Bagels and locks for the Jags and Patriots. You're gonna laugh at me.
I'm gonna disagree with you.
You're gonna disagree and you're gonna laugh. I think the Jags are gonna win. And here's why I say it. That defense is like nothing the Patriots have seen this season. Just let me get my points out. Let me get my points out, and then you can laugh at me and make fun of me. That defense is a great defense. Not a good defense. That is a great defense. That's when the Seahawks were winning the Super Bowl level defense. What makes them so great is that they have shutdown corners that each individually can go out and play on an island and shut down receivers. AJ Boye gave up his first touchdown of the season this past week because it's Antonio Brown. Like, the Patriots don't have an Antonio Brown caliber receiver. They have Rob Gronkowski. But what makes the Jaguars so capable against a team like that? Julian Edelman's not on their team right now, okay? They have Chris Hogan, who's fine. Brandon Cooks, who's fine. Danny Amendola, who's fine. They have good running backs.
Amendola's a playmaker.
No, they're good. No, they're good players, but they're not Antonio Brown, and they're not going to go. They'll make the routine play, but when you have corners that can be shut down caliber corners, Jalen Ramsey might be the best corner in the NFL already, and he's only in his second year. And what makes the Jags defense so versatile is that they have so much speed at the linebacker position. So someone like Rob Gronkowski, where he exploits most teams because he's either more physical than a fast linebacker or quicker than a physical linebacker. The Jags have a lot of hybrid type of players. Miles Jack is that type of guy that they're never going to shut down Rob Gronkowski, but they can defend him to a point. That defense is great. And what they might be able to do,
I wish people could see my face.
What they might be able to do is what needs to be done against a team like the Patriots is they can rush four. They can just rush their front four and get pressure on Tom Brady. And that's what disrupts Tom Brady. And the other side of the ball, what makes the Patriots so good consistently is that Belichick on the defensive side of the ball outsmarts the other team. What works out is that the Jags offense is already so dumb and so simplistic that eliminates Belichick's one advantage, which is outsmarting the other team. There's nothing to outsmart. Their offense is so simplistic and so stupid. They just hand the ball off and throw simple slams. Of course he will. But their offense is so simplistic and so dumb that there's almost no way to outsmart them because they've already outsmarted themselves. They're already so simplistic on the offensive side of the ball that they, I believe, will be able to do just enough offensively and be able to not shut down the Patriots' offense. There's no shutting down Tom Brady, but because their front four is so good and their defensive backs are so good and their linebackers are so quick, I really truly believe that the Jaguars are going to win this game. I know you think I'm crazy, and you can tell me why I'm wrong right now. Tell me why I'm wrong. You could just say Blake Bortles and Tom Brady, and that on its own.
First of all, I'm not speechless because I know this is you've got the Kool-Aid, the Jacksonville Kool-Aid.
Duval.
Went to UCF.
Yeah, Blake Bortles.
I totally get why you did this, but I am so baffled that you think that the Jaguars' defense.
Incredible. Did you watch them?
Okay, hold on.
I know they gave up 42 points to the Steelers.
Exactly.
But Antonio Brown...
You cannot do that against New England.
Of course not. No, and you won't win that way.
You cannot. I don't care. I mean, first of all, I think Jacksonville, they played a phenomenal game. Do I think that they're consistently as good as they showed? No, they came to play. Okay? I'll give them that.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on the Jags.
No, I understand.
But what I'm going to say is, this is the Patriots.
Yeah.
And last week they had a chip on their shoulder. They came out and they shut down house.
The Titans are horrible.
But they had a chip on their shoulder, and they made sure that there were no questions asked and no doubts had.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? There's some more doubts. There's some more people talking. There's some more people trying to find excuses to count out the Patriots this week.
Tom Brady's hand,
His
the
hand
drama,
is injured,
Guerrero, all of
Belichick, the Garoppolo stuff. People are asking Belichick about Garoppolo today in his press conference when they have to play a conference championship in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And Belichick is he's rapid fire. And if you listened to that press conference, which I don't know if you did or not. I did. And, I mean, he sounds like Bill Belichick, and nothing is going to stop him. And he is so, like I said, this team first of all, this team is good enough to win without any added fuel to their fire.
Mm-hmm.
But you add all the stuff, there is no stopping them. I don't care who your defense is.
Blake Bortles fact for you. He's never lost a playoff game. Tom Brady's lost 9.
Yeah, but Tom Brady's been to how many more playoff games?
It's a joke. Relax.
That's like saying Federer's never served an ace.
Do you not follow Blake Bortles facts on Twitter? They're going to blow up. They're going to be all over ESPN. Shout out Blake Bortles facts.
I think that it's funny to me.
Yeah, it's funny.
Your argument is funny to me.
Well, my argument
and I respect it, but I'm going to politely disagree with you.
Well, we'll see.
And I'm going to be right on.
Go Jags,
on
Duval.
Monday.
All right, so then
Patriots.
you get your chance to to pick now and give me your bagel and your lock in the Vikings and Eagles, which is just vastly less entertaining in terms of storylines. The former Jeff Fisher Los Angeles Rams quarterback battle of Case Keenum and Nick Foles.
I think I'm very torn on this. I really would like to see Minnesota get to the Super Bowl.
Right, I think we all would.
Minneapolis, they're a feel-good story.
Mm-hmm.
But so are the Eagles.
Yeah.
And I think that this could go either of two ways, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's probably the Gemini in me that I can't make a decision.
Oh, Gemini also.
But That's Vikings,
what we should have called our show. Something about Geminis or about Geminis.
We can always change it, but because nothing is off limits with us.
Haha.
But the Vikings could either that win and the fashion in which it all happened could either have taken all the energy and sucked it right out of them.
Right.
Or it could just push them and fuel them and give them that energy that they're going to need playing in Philadelphia.
Right.
So I'm going to go with the latter and say that the hype, there's no hype. I'm going to say that everything that's unfolded since that big dramatic win, I think it's like they're licking their lips. They want more of this.
Yeah.
And I think that Philadelphia is going to expect them to, like I said, have the energy sucked out of them. Mm-hmm. And the high of beating the Saints, I think Philadelphia is going to underestimate the Vikings. And I think that Minnesota is going to win. Now, that being said, I don't know that that's going to necessarily.
That's how you feel.
It's what
that's how you feel. What do you?
Right
what's
going
to happen?
But
who's the lock?
I have gone back and forth on this. I don't think anybody's a lock. Is my problem. I don't think either of them are a lock.
Yeah, but you have to pick one. I had to last week, and I was wrong.
I'm gonna pick Minnesota as the lock.
Okay.
Because they want a home game this playoffs, and guess what? They'll get it when they play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, which would be incredible.
Yeah.
I do agree with you on this. I'm looking at it right now. What's interesting is
that the Patriots are good.
Well, yes. All right. So what's interesting is I'm looking at the rushing defenses from this past season. The number one, and then we'll wrap this up. The number one rushing defense in the NFL was Philadelphia. The number two rushing defense was Minnesota.
Right.
Both of these teams can stop the run. And with that...
But I think that Minnesota can live without the run.
Right.
More than Philly can.
And that's exactly what I was about to say to compound your point, is that Case Keenum. Nick Foles is not terrible.
No,
Case Keenum is good. Like, we all laugh because he's been this journeyman player, but because of the weapons they have on the outside, they have pass catching running backs. Yeah, that's fine. But Case Keenum is playing good football, and he has all year. Yeah. And I think I agree with you.
I think Minnesota has been the more. Stable's not the right word, but consistently.
Yeah. Right. Well,
if you're looking at both teams' consistency,
it's just because of the fact that Nick Foles is there. If Carson Wentz was there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It'd be a totally different conversation.
You're
because
right.
You'd have an MVP caliber quarterback playing for the team that was better all year.
You're right.
It'd be different.
But based off their two consistencies,
where they are right now,
Minnesota is
so it's Minnesota and Jacksonville. A former University of Houston quarterback and a former University of Central Florida quarterback.
It's Minnesota and New England.
Group of 5 represent
and New
American
England's
Conference.
Win the Super Bowl. That's my lock.
It was great having the Nothing Off Limits podcast with you, Jenna, and we'll be back to you guys
next week. We're gonna
go
test,
Jags, Duval.
Next week we're gonna test Jeremy's tennis knowledge. I am telling you, this is gonna be great stuff.
Come back for more.